Hello, 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 everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you find yourself. My name is Rosalin. I'm your trainer, and happy Dyslexia Awareness Month to you all, as we always do it for the past 4 years. Dyslexia Awareness is when we have back to back different conversations and bring you people with insights from dyslexic people, insight from experts who are dyslexic. And today I have the honor to bring some known faces and also not too known faces on your screen for us to dialogue with them. I would encourage you to bring in your questions as you listen to them, ask questions, and when it's time, we would ask those questions as well. What you can do to help us is to share your link with a friend, call them so that they can join this conversation and be able to learn along you. Once you finish watching, so you could always share the link. It's always going to be available in whichever platform that you are watching from. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And so, without much ado, let me quickly go and bring in my guest. And the first person I'm going to bring to you is Aaron Dante. And Aaron will be followed by Ama Samoa. And we'll have Awoya Manubea the first, and Tonisha Tagoe as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I call you the four dyslexic adults, and it's for a reason. Where we often talking about dyslexia, but to some people, they might not have really come closer to someone who is dyslexic before, and maybe they know a child who is dyslexic. But who are the adults who are dyslexic? What makes me so happy is that these are blacks dyslexic that we are connecting with today, and I believe it is so important for our community, especially our young folks, to identify with and know that there are people who have actually gone through all the challenges and have made it here. And so I will call on Amma, who is the co-founder of Patron, to introduce herself. And from then we'll go to Aaron, proceed with Tonisha, and come to Awo. Thank you. Amma, go ahead.
Awesome. Happy Dyslexia Awareness Month. I'm so excited to be here with you. So, as you mentioned, I am the Chief Operating Officer at Patron. Patron is an IT service infrastructure company. So, our company works on the back end of technology. That is what I call my 9 to 5. And then I have my two other companies that I run. The second one is Wastework, where we focus on adult play in real time and have gone into the childhood inclusion space to prioritize play as an equitable space for children, along with their educational journey. And then we have my company Shifting Perspectives, where I get to sit with entrepreneurs to help them scale their operations by focusing on their standard operating procedures. So my time is spent in a lot of different places, and then I get the honor of being one of ADO's global ambassadors, which is such a privilege.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Amma. And if you're watching in the comment section, let us know where you are watching from, and we'll give you a shout out. Let's hear from Aaron Dante.
All right. Well, thank you so much, man. I'm so happy to be here. I just love the fellowship with the people who have dyslexia, and I just this is amazing. And thank you so much. Well, again, my name is Aaron Phillips. I run a company called a Greener Sustainable Solution. It's a global company. We try to make brown companies green. That's one of our mottos. Lately, we've been working with a lot of small disadvantaged businesses. We got a huge project at Apple, so we're staying pretty busy over here. Most of my family works for the company, which is exciting. I like to definitely give a shout out to my family because my daughter's my CFO. She's actually in the other room over there. I just heard her walk by. But it's some exciting times here at Green Earth. I used to be just before I started this company. I used to work at Tesla, so I had the pleasure and sometimes not the pleasure of working with Mr. Elon Musk. He was my boss, so he's quite the challenge. Dealing with him, but it was brought a lot of experience. I've only recently found out I was dyslexia a few years ago. It was funny. I had no knowledge whatsoever that I was dyslexic. And, talking to Rosie, she kind of had the similar story when she found out, which was kind of exciting. And I am on the board, ADO. I'm also an ambassador. I will do anything to support this wonderful family. We got some great people here. I can't wait to hear some of the other stories. And it's just I'm excited to be here. And thank you again for the invite.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for joining us today. We are so honored to have you. And we will go to Tonisha. Before Tonisha will come, please invite your friends, invite your families, your community to join this conversation. Share the link around so that a lot of people can benefit from what we're going to share here. Madam Tonisha, over to you.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm different to you, Erin and Rosalin. I'd say I'm a professional dyslexic. I've known I was dyslexic since I was like 7. And I've made the most of knowing that throughout my life, and paved the way for myself with that knowledge. So like I always said to people, I walk with my worst foot forward. So it's been an interesting life. And more recently, I think I've come across a reality that I may have been dodging, that possibly ADHD is in my space. Possibly because everyone who works with people with ADHD is like, Tanisha, you've got ADHD. So I'm due to just check that one out soon, but I think it would explain a lot. But yes, I'm also dyslexic. And it's definitely a superpower of mine. I use my skills in terms of the, I guess, high level perspective that dyslexia gives me, to make sure I'm always placed in leadership, strategic roles that involve like having a good oversight, directing vision, etc. So that's been really good in my academic career. I'm now an associate dean of learning and teaching in universities. Again, that's something I think that was only possible because of my understanding of the need for diversity in learning, and kind of embedding that in the way that I've worked throughout and putting in systems. So that really kind of pushed me to be able to be a dean by the age of 35. But now more so, I run my own businesses most of the time. So the main one is Apples and Pears. And in that organization, we provide leaders with the tools they need to succeed. So whether it be coaching, training, events, and now more so we've moved into convening of global events. So convening events in spaces like the UN General Assembly, etc. So really kind of working with people at really high strategic levels, which is really fun. But Apples and Pears is a holdings company. So we have many kind of sub brands. So my favorite is one that's called the Ladies Entrepreneurship Club. And in that space, we help women to start, build, grow, and sell businesses and list on their local stock exchange. And that's going swimmingly well. We also have something called Baobab Intelligence, which is our research and publication kind of arm. So everything that we do, relationships that we have where it's relevant to put out documentation, research publications, we now do that at Baobab. So Baobab's a few months old, and has about 3 books coming that have already been published and coming out globally soon. And then, and then just recently we've opened our first NGO, which we got the registration documents for today, called the Pipeline Foundation. Yep. Mainly because a lot of the things I do are very high ticket, and because my landlord only takes cash, he doesn't take cuddles. So it's been very difficult to be anything but extremely strategic financially. But now we've reached a really good place, I believe, that we can have an NGO And so I'm looking forward to the future of that. And of course, as with Erin, I'm lucky enough to be a board member for ADO. So it looks like, a lot of fun in my dyslexic world right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. Dyslexics can do a lot of things indeed. And you are going to find out from all that today. We go to our
Oh, I was in my own world there. Yeah, so my name is Manubea the first, and I am the Mawerehemaa, which is a queen, type of queen of Kyekyewere in the eastern region of Ghana. I was installed in April, so it's all quite new to me. But yes, what do I do? Currently, I own a care domiciliary agency, which is a family business, so similar to Aaron, and also a construction company as well, family business. So in terms of construction, I don't really know much. I'm learning all about it. In terms of domiciliary, I've been working in adult social services since I was 24. Don't tell you how old I am now, but yeah, I've been in that sector for a very long time. So working with adults with vulnerabilities, learning difficulties, disabilities, all that stuff. So with all that knowledge that I had, and then meeting my husband, who was also passionate about the well-being of adults, we decided to start the care agency. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I recently, like Tonisha was saying, I registered my foundation, so it's called the Manubea Foundation. And yeah, that's me. I'm a mother of two, a mother to four. I got 4 stepchildren now. Yeah, that's about it. I think I'll leave the rest to the conversation about me. Yeah. And also, I found out I was dyslexic as an adult. So, like Aaron, I didn't know that I actually have dyspraxia. So, dyspraxia is a form of dyslexia, and it's about like my coordination and my articulation. So yes, it's like intaking information. Sometimes it's like you have all this stuff you want to say, but you just cannot articulate yourself well. I have that problem. Also, in terms of coordination, it's like I'm not good at balancing. I bump into people in the street, dancing, ice skating, all these kind of things. Riding a bike, I don't know how to ride a bike. So having dyspraxia is something that I wouldn't say it's more challenging than having dyslexia, but not knowing that I had that as a child, you can imagine what I was going through. Like my parents or my aunties and uncles used to say, "Why are you so clumsy?" Or "Why are you like this?" Africans, they'll be saying all kinds of things to me. So it kind of became like a belief system as I was growing up that I'm not good enough, I'm clumsy, I'm dumb, But I knew within me that I was a smart person. I knew like I had gifts. Do you understand? Like I knew that I knew that I was intelligent, but people always made me feel like I wasn't because of how I used to articulate myself, and then I would fall over. Even now when I'm like trying to get on the train or the bus, I'm bumping into people, and it gets worse as you get older. But and my organizational skills are like just like this. But like I said, I'm learning different ways of how to manage my dyspraxia. But in terms of like reading and writing, I'm fine, really good. I mean, I've got a degree, so I'm not that bad. Yeah, and that's me. So I'll leave the rest of the conversation. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing and introducing yourself. I will. There is a reason why I asked you all to personally introduce yourself without me reading your bio. Is for our audience to kind of look to see the great work you have done to get where you are. And all of us have some special story to share as to where we took ourselves from point A to where we are today. And the spirit or the energy of resilience that we had to hold on to get to where we are. And so I'll go with Amar to kind of briefly for her to tell us about her experience with dyslexia. How did you get to know about it, and what made you? And one thing is that if you listen carefully to all our speakers here, you can see all of them are doing multiple things. None of them is doing one thing. Why so? I don't understand, because myself here as a dyslexic, I'm not doing one thing. I'm doing too much things. Why do we have that energy? You were the people that you were known not to be good. So why did you get, where did you get all these from? And I'm sure Amma, you can touch on that when you to introduce yourself, how you got to know to be dyslexic.
Okay, I love telling this story, but I think Tanisha is part of the minority of being able to identify, especially during that generational time, being able to be identified as dyslexic as a child. I too was diagnosed as dyslexic as an adult. I was actually getting my master's degree in London. And it was one of my head professors who sat down with me after we submitted an assignment. And it was the first time I ever heard dyslexia in my life. And I was so confused because I went through all my formative education. And here I was for the first time hearing the word dyslexia. And I remember almost feeling offended. Like, how dare you call me dyslexic? But I decided I could let my pride stand in my way, or I could go on the journey and get more answers for myself in terms of like getting a formal assessment, finding out what dyslexia truly is. And I decided to do the latter. I went on the journey to get formal assessments to understand what dyslexia was. And in the process, my whole life made so much more sense after learning that I was dyslexic. Um, and there were just some things I was naturally good at. Reading and writing was not one of them. So I naturally just gravitated towards science. I didn't know why. I couldn't put verbiage to it, but it's because I was dyslexic. And after that assessment and after being able to sit with people that could further support my education journey, I got the tools that I needed to help me propel and succeed. I always said if I didn't find out I was dyslexic, I don't think I would probably be an entrepreneur today because I would be too fearful. I wouldn't have the right tools to actually lead me into the right places. And I also say if I found out if I was dyslexic when I was younger, we have one of the global ambassadors, Amara. I believe she's 11 now, 11 or 12. And her mom is such a champion for her in terms of getting her the right support, putting her in all the spaces that she needs to be. And she's on her way to being the next prime minister. And I say, if I knew I was dyslexic at a young age, I would probably be president. So just the gratitude and the journey of finding my superpower, operating in it, and using all of those things to my advantage now to be able to run successful businesses, run my NGO successfully, and then be very clear in terms of what I need on my team in order to achieve success. And my team is one of my biggest proponents for me. I too work in a family business. And I also have an amazing team that supports me in all the different ventures that I do.
Thank you so much, Amma, for giving us that insight. I think one thing that is so obvious here is, apart from Tonisha, of course, who found out to be dyslexic thanks to her grandmother, which she will share very soon, I think most of us kind of got to know to be dyslexic at a very late stage in life. And I see that a lot in the African or Black community. And I feel this is where that is why the awareness we are creating is so important, because yes, it's good we know at this time when we are adults. However, the power it would have been if our parents have gotten to know that we are dyslexic very early on, like early identification, and the support is given, just as Imara, whom you mentioned her name, being known to be dyslexic, and now her mom is giving all the support, advocating for all the support that she's supposed to receive. So I can imagine what Imara life is going to be like. And so with that said, let's go and hear about Tonisha's experience, and then we move on with the conversation. Tony, over to you.
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably like on Imara's side. Like, I guess when she grows older, she'll probably be sat there saying she's so glad that her mom invested so much time in really understanding her, was it neuro direction, neuro perspective, neuro approach. Because for me, it was very much my grandma. My grandmother was a headmistress, and I grew up with her. And very early on, she used to homeschool me. So I guess she figured out that as a headmistress, she's taught loads of kids, and there was definitely something wrong with this one. So she put me in school for a couple of days a week. And one of the things that happened very early on as a result of that is that I was assessed for dyslexia. I don't know who requested, but I do recall a scenario where I had written, I like cats and dogs, and the and from the D and the and from the D from the and D from the dogs were one D. So it was ANDOGS. And the teacher kept asking me, asking me, what does that say? And I was like, I like cats and dogs. And she was like, no, what does it say? And we went through that over and over. And then that led into her talking to my grandma about it, and then them getting me assessed. And then one story after the other, dyslexia, basically. Of course, I didn't have a clue what that meant. And to be honest with you, I still took part in the benefits of it. Like, I had home tuition. My grandma did everything. She took everything that was coming at a dyslexic child. My grandmother took the library cards, the this, the trips, the course, the that, the boom, everything. So I just remember having a very full childhood experience that was very much rooted in my grandma just creating a multimodal, multisensory space for me to ensure that I was learning things in multiple ways. But again, didn't really understand much about that. When I got to college, though, I had my son at 16, so then I was back homeschooled again for a few months before those exams, came out with all the best grades I could come out with. But when it came to college, I recall choosing to homeschool myself after the AS year, because I just felt like everything was just too slow in the classrooms, and I was getting distracted, and I just had better things to do and then just sit there all day long. So I homeschooled myself through those A levels, which made it faster for me. And again, I didn't really notice certain things, but I was obviously trying to find a learning style that suited me and meant that I could digest the information quicker, because obviously digesting it the traditional way meant that I had like triple work to do. And I was just like, this is not the way to teach or the way to learn for me. But I think I thought it was more generic, and I used to be quite critical of the teachers that I had around me. But I did use the college to get assessed again for dyslexia. So I recall getting the dyslexia assessment I had done when I was in college, and that really dragged out and lasted me for another decade, because that became what I used in university, what I used in the workplace, what I used everywhere, because I hadn't realized that actually having that done for free in college was such an opportunity, because those dyslexia assessments are really, really, really expensive. So thankfully to my grandmother and what she did when I was young, and then of course the college aspect and the fact that they covered the cost of it, I've actually never paid for a dyslexia assessment myself. But then, yes, that took me through uni. And again, in uni, I was just like, these people can't teach. And now let's keep in mind, I'm a teacher, right? And I've been in education since I was about 17. I started as teaching assistant. So I was just like, why can't these people teach? Like, when I teach my students, they all understand everything. What is wrong with these people? So I started running my own classes after class once a week in uni. I ran my own study groups. And everyone in my study groups, we all got a first class together. And the university hired me as a lecturer, the dyslexic one, as a lecturer. So, of course, everyone was really suspicious. And there was this huge scandal that came about where some students started to say that basically they think that they couldn't understand how I passed, because I never came to class. I always said I couldn't understand anything. I always struggled with the reading. And everyone knew I was publicly dyslexic. So they were like, how did she get first class? But obviously it was those classes I was doing afterwards that were creating the multimodal approach to the information, right? If I just had the words alone and no one to speak out to, talk back and do that, because sometimes teaching is a better way to learn, and that's especially true for me. If you teach me something now, I'll teach it to someone else 5 minutes later to confirm I've learned it to myself. So yeah, and I've just basically carried on like that. And then same in the workplace. Whenever I approach the workplace, first thing I do is declare I'm dyslexic. If you don't want me, you don't want me. That's it. That's who I am. Because of oftentimes I found that people would try to use my weaknesses against me when they want to try and manage me out. And I was like, no, I told you that on the first date. you chose to date me. You chose to hire me. You will keep me as I am. When I'm ready, I will go. So I kind of just have, that's why I said I'm professional dyslexic. Like I know my weaknesses. I walk with them. I don't keep them a secret. I'm not immune to criticism, critique, the problems and stuff, but I think I've always thought that my brain is supposed to be this way, and not understood why everyone else wasn't just using multiple tools. Like I always say to people, like the tools I use as a dyslexic, you should just be using it anyway. Like text to speech, you should be using text to speech anyway. Speech to text, you should be using it anyway. So it's very interesting because now all the technology is very neurodiversity friendly, right? You pick up your phone, you can speak a WhatsApp message and it writes it out. I have like a Samsung Fold. I take my pen out, I write with my handwriting, it writes it out as words. So, so many things around me. We've got Otter AI. I'll sit in a meeting, I can fully be mindful. Otter will record and pull out these transcripts. So for me, the world finally caught up to the reality of what is best for everyone. And I still do feel that way about dyslexic minds, and the way we operate is that our minds are probably more switched on to the need for multimodality in the world, and especially in communication and information sharing and knowledge sharing. So that's kind of been my journey. And like I said, I'm lucky that it started with the childhood assessment, but there's been more assessments throughout my life, and more consistency in understanding the need for the world to shift to fit me, because I can't shift. Like I can try, but it won't happen. And I think that that's been really important for me in my growth, and probably why a lot of people will be like, oh, Tanisha, how do you do all this? And it's because I know what I can and cannot do. And that builds a lot of trust in, like, from us, for people who are afraid of neurodiversity, because they know that they can trust me to fail at this, but win at that. And they know that I know my boundaries as well. So yeah, that's kind of been my journey, just started from childhood and then just following the path. Yes, of course, I stretch myself and I try my best. Like I said, 3 books coming out that I did write myself this year, but I didn't write it with pen and paper, and I didn't sit in a dark room. I used every tool. This is a very multimodal, creative, visual journey. And I got there in the end. And I think that's really been my story, is that I found out my weaknesses, and I've worked hard in the ways that suit me to make sure I get to where I'm supposed to be at the end of each journey.
Thank you so much, Tony, for sharing about your journey. And I like the perspective Tony shared from, because she was diagnosed in England. I wonder if you were diagnosed in Ghana, what would have been, what would have happened to you with all the things grandma was just taking and taking and taking everything for you. But this is where we want to get in Ghana and beyond, on the continent of Africa, where kids are identified very early, screened or assessed, and then intervention given to them, and also resources. What are the resources that are available to them? And so this is why global conversation is very important. And if you're watching and you have a question, please put it in the comment section. We will answer your questions while we go on. I see there are quite a number of parents that I know that are also watching us, and their kids are very young. And so in our submission, what I would like us to do is, whenever you submitted something, also give that kind of encouragement and things parents could look out for their children as well. So thank you so much for sharing. Let's go and hear a male voice, and then we'll come to Awoya Manubea as well. So Aaron, your story is so beautiful. I don't know how you made it to actually teach yourself to chemistry to be where you are today. Let us hear from you. And I hope some of these stories that are sharing parents, it encourages you to not give up on your child, for you to see that there is a light out there, but you get to work hard for your child. You never have to give up. And if you're an educator, these kids in your classroom are not lazy. They are not dumb. They are actually working hard and learning hard. And so we need your support. We need your assistance to get them to be where they can be, so to actualize their potentials in them. Aaron, take over. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm the old person here. I'm the elder statesman. I've been around for a long time. I was born in the '60s. Okay, so when I was growing up, I never heard of dyslexia or anything like that. I always had learning disabilities. I had a lisp, and I had all kinds of problems. I was in special ed. I had all these issues where people were trying to fix me. But when I was a kid, I never felt like I needed to be fixed. I thought I was special. I thought I was different. Even though I didn't learn the same way, I wasn't a very good student. I did not graduate from college because I just didn't think that I needed college to get where I needed to get to. Plus, I was into computer programming in high school, and when I got to college, I was like, man, these guys ahead of me, they got it down packed. I knew that I was going to have to deviate to a different profession, which I got into chemistry, and that's where I appreciate Rosie mentioning the fact that I did teach myself chemistry. I had to. I could not read the way other people could and learn the way other people could learn. And I had a little trick growing up and when I was in school is I didn't really pay attention too much in class, but I did focus on what I needed to do. So I learned how to take pass tests. I saw the element of trying to learn something, and then I would find something that I would use an association. Like if I wanted to learn a word, if I could say the word, a particular word, and I knew what it was, then I associated another word to learn another word. As a kid, so I didn't really. I couldn't focus, and I couldn't explain to my father, who raised me, what was going on. So I got kind of lucky. I was lucky that I grew up in the United States. I was lucky I grew up in an area where a lot of the teachers felt sorry for this little black boy. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, so they felt sorry for me to a certain extent, even though we were the poorest family in the neighborhood. So getting out of high school was a big deal. It was actually a big challenge. But in a way, I felt special, even though, like I said, I never felt like I was as book smart than the kids around me. But I always felt like I was going to be successful, no matter what the situation. Didn't matter. You throw something in front of me. Tanisha talks about superpowers all the time. I really felt like I did have a superpower. I did feel like that, even though I'm not learning the way everybody else is learning and doing, I could do anything. There was no challenge that I could not, that I would not accept, that I wouldn't figure it out. And if you know me, if you work with me, if you know me for most of my life, I always say I will figure it out, and I usually do. And I was fortunate to have some very good positions. I worked for the Department of Energy when I was 26 years old. Talked myself into that job. I worked in Alaska cleaning chemical spills. I became the vice president and soon to be president of a metal recycling company, which we ended up selling it, and I just kind of moved on. Every position I've ever taken, I look back and I say to myself, man, I cannot believe I did not know I was dyslexic, but I excelled at all those positions, and I forgot who said it, but yeah, I think if I had known I was dyslexic when I was a kid, who knows, maybe I'd be Obama. You know what I mean? You never know that. So that's why it's a blessing to be part of this organization, because we can help the young guys that are struggling out there. I don't know how many brothers I've seen on the streets that I know that are dyslexic or have some type of issue, learning issue, that because they were labeled stupid or they couldn't get it and they had self-esteem problems, they just forget it. Just to forget it, they'll get involved. It's a lot easier to get involved with the riffraff that's out there, drugs and everything else. And I know that our prisons around the world are filled with tons of dyslexic people, which is sad in a way. And when I found out I was dyslexic, which right before COVID, so that's kind of easy, when I remember, I got tested. And I was like, they say, yeah, you're mildly dyslexic. I'm like, yeah, that explains, now I get it. And I felt so it was like so empowering that I got that diagnosis, because now I get it. now I see why I don't learn and I don't read and I don't write. And, it takes me 10 minutes to put together a freaking, a email, you know what I mean? Or I have a personal assistant that checks all my stuff, before I send out a business letter or stuff. And again, Tonisha had talked about like AI and all that. Now I'm the man now. Okay. Let me tell you something right now. I can write. I mean, I am the man. I love writing letters because I've always been very creative, very creative. My English classes, creative writing was always number one. I get an A in all those classes. But now I can actually write something that people can understand. It doesn't take me 20 minutes, to make sure that, I didn't mix up a word or mix up the letters now. So it's absolutely wonderful. So now it's my mission, along with, these beautiful ladies here. And it's sad. Well, not really sad. There isn't a lot of guys out there that are like me out there, talking about the situation. So I'm dealing with a lot of lovely ladies, which is wonderful. But I'm hoping to inspire a lot of the parents that have sons out there, especially, again, daughters 100%. I'm a girl dad, myself, but inspired to get these young guys checked out and get them on the right path and not label them stupid and lazy. And if they see some issues that don't look normal to them, don't blame the child. Okay. Don't, maybe there's something going on, and get them tested and find out, because we all have excelled with it, find it out later in life, or when you were a child. Look at the amazing things that we've all done. But again, there's so many people out there, so many kids that I know for a fact that are in the same situation we all are, regardless if you were tested or not tested, and that we can help. And that's my mission in life. And it's such a blessing to be part of ADO. Meeting Rosie was amazing. I love her. I love this whole organization. What we do is just the right thing. And I just anytime I get to talk about my situation or how we help as a group, is such a blessing. But I'm telling you, all the parents, the teachers, anybody watching us right now, just know that tell your children, tell the kids out there, hey, it doesn't matter if you're dyslexic, it doesn't matter if you have any kind of learning disability, it doesn't matter what your family went through, whatever it is, you can be successful. Don't ever give up. You can be successful. And that's my message that I typically try to end my talks and speeches. Just do not give up, because none of us did. We're at some great plateaus, did some wonderful things, but do not give up. A lot of hope for us out there.
Wow, wow, wow. Do not give up. I love that ending. Do not give up. Because if you do, I tell you, you're going to regret it. And parents, do not give up on your children. I say every time that you are your child's number one advocate. It is you before the school. If you are not in the way, I am sorry. How do you expect an educator to be there for your child? So we know better now, and we heard it from Aaron as well. Thank you so much. We'll come back to Aaron again. Let's go to our Manubea to hear her as well.
Hi, everybody, once again. So, I grew up not knowing that I had dyspraxia. So, as I was growing up, I knew something was wrong because I didn't like maths, I didn't like English, I only liked geography, history, because in history, I was learning. So, it made me feel like, wow, and I just love learning about different cultures and things going on around the world. I love geography because we learn about everything that's going on in the world as well. But when it came to like maths, English, science, I just couldn't get things, and I never told anyone. So in class, I was always the one I'd distract other people. So I became a talkative in the classroom, and then I would get in trouble all the time, and my mum would get called in, and they'd say that I'm always chatting because that was the only way that I could cover it up. So this kind of went on for, in my primary education, it went on for quite a while. Then when I got to secondary school, I was like, no, I'm going to do really well in secondary school, and everything's going to be good. started secondary school, the same problem. I just couldn't get things. So I became promiscuous, you know. I became a promiscuous child. I started bunking off school. Um, and I think when I got to like the age of 13, my school had contacted my mother. Those days there was no like education wasn't like how it is now. So they'd write a letter, and I always used to get the letters. So they sent like an enforcement officer from the local authority to my mum's house, and my mum, you know, found out that I hadn't been going to school, so she sent me to live with my stepfather in the other side of London. And I thought, okay, maybe if I change schools, you know, things will change. But things just never change. I just couldn't understand anything. I couldn't get it. And I just thought, you know what? Maybe it's because I'm young. I'm not an adult yet. Maybe when I become an adult, things will, you know, I'd understand things. Maybe adults understand things, and maybe I'm just still a child or a teenager. So once I finished secondary school, I really wanted to do A levels. You know, I wanted to be a doctor actually, but I just didn't know how I'd become a doctor. And because I was trying to hide this dyslexia, I was trying to hide that I couldn't understand things to anybody. Like I never told my mom, I never told my friends. Um, I really admired the smart people in my classrooms, like, you know, the people that were smart, and I always tried to befriend them. But then when they realized that I wasn't interested in studying, they would distance themselves. So, like I said before, that's when I started hanging around with all the bad people and being promiscuous and everything. So, yeah. So when it was time to go to college, like I said, I wanted to do A levels, but I didn't get good GCSE results. I couldn't revise, and I still didn't speak to anybody about it. I didn't let anyone know that I was struggling so hard um, with all my subjects. The only subjects I did well in was design, technology, and art. Funny enough, I got an A in art and I got a B in design technology. The rest I failed. And I couldn't even tell my mum I failed my GCSEs, because at those times we went to pick up our GCSEs at school. So I just pretended, oh, I got okay results. And as you know, I wouldn't say it's her fault, but she didn't really ask me, can I see? Or can I see your results? Because we didn't have that kind of relationship. We weren't that close. So I chose to do beauty therapy in college, thinking, you know, beauty therapy, I don't have to do anything to do with, you know, learning. I thought it would just be like doing treatments and stuff like that. And then when I went to college, I found out I had to do science, and then I had to do functional skills. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what is going on? I didn't even understand the modules, first of all. So when, you know, when you first start a course, they will like break down the modules. Okay, this year we're going to do this, this. And I just didn't get it. So I'd go to science, and I started to understand like biology. It was kind of clicking, but it didn't actually click. And I was enjoying all the treatments, like learning how to do massaging and nails and all that stuff, but I just couldn't get the academic side of everything. And then I just left. I thought, okay, maybe it's that course. Let me do something else. So I went to do photography, and I really did well in that. Because really did well in photography. And then after photography, I went to do performing arts, because I was trying to run away once again from learning. So just doing something creative. And when I did performing arts, everything just came crashing down. I just didn't understand what was going on. And then I left. And I think I was around 18, 19, and I was really confused with my life. And I was just too embarrassed to let anybody know that I was confused about my life. So I just decided that I'm going to focus on church. And I actually started going to church, and I just put all my life into church, met someone, got pregnant, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to be a mother. So that will kind of hide the dyslexia for a few years, you know? That's going to hide everything. I don't have to, I'll just be, you know, a mother. I'll stay at home for a bit. So I had my daughter, had my son, and then I broke up with their father, and then life just came crashing down on me, because I was a single mother, and I was just thinking, what am I going to do with my life? And I just knew that I needed to fix up. You know, I need to sort myself out. So I started. I mean, I did a lot of things. I'd worked in the. I've jumped and missed out stuff. I had actually worked at BMG. I worked in entertainment for a while before I met their dad and all that kind of stuff. And then so when I broke up with their dad and I was back to square one, I was like, I need to fix up. I need to find out what's wrong with me. But I got a job at the local authority as a support worker. So I started working as a support worker, and I had a colleague there called Ian who was dyslexic, and he used to say to me, I think you're dyslexic because I'd avoid anything to do with like anything to do with going on the computer or writing, because we had to do communication and session planning and um, care plans and risk assessments. Anything to do with writing, I would just call him and ask him, could he do it, or call another work colleague. I was just trying to, like kind of be smart and hide everything. But he actually took me to the side one day and said, you know what, Eva, I think something's wrong with you. And I actually have this problem, And I was like, what's wrong with you? And he goes, I've got dyslexia. And I was like, I don't think I'm dyslexic, I'm fine. And he goes, no, I think you are. And he was like, you can get assessed because you work for the local authority. And if you put in a request, they will pay for everything for you. And I was like, okay, but I didn't listen to him. I worked there for 7 years and he would bring it up once in a while. I didn't mind him. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to university and get myself a degree out of nowhere. I'm just, maybe that will, I don't know, make me want to learn or focus, or it, I just thought, I don't know, I just want to get a degree because it was something I really wanted in life. And my daughter was starting secondary school at this point, and I wanted to prove to my children how important education was, because I told them about my struggles. I didn't really know, I didn't tell them I was dyslexic because I didn't know. I just told them I struggled with education. And, I've been working for 7 years and I have so much dreams and plans for my life. I don't want you guys to, be like me. I don't want you guys to just be working all your life. I want you to pursue your goals. Like if you want to be a doctor or a nurse or whatever you want to be, I want you to become that. So I applied for uni. And when I applied for uni, I actually broke down to Tonisha would know. I don't know, the people that sign you up for the courses. So I went into the uni for an open day, and I sat down with one of the lecturers. He was, I think, the module leader for business, which I wanted to do. And I just started crying. And she was like, why are you crying? And I just said to her, I'm so confused. Like, I'm here. I know I want to become a businesswoman. I've got so much plans. I just want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to work for anybody anymore. But I've got this problem. And she was like, what problem? And I said, I'm just not an academic person, and I never have been. And she was like, well, a lot of people are not, that doesn't stop you from going to university. Like we have BAs, we have BScs. And she was trying to, and I said, no, like something's actually wrong with me. Like I can't learn. And she was like, okay, have you ever had a test for a learning difficulty? And I was like, no. And she said, well, I think that's I think that's what you need to do before you even think about going to uni. And I said to her, well, I have to start uni this September because my daughter's going to secondary school and I have to start uni this September. So she directed me to an educational psychologist, and I had to pay. It was very expensive with my own money. And she was like, don't worry, use your own money. And when you start uni and you get student finance, if you are dyslexic, they will give you a disability allowance, and that will, cover everything, else. Everything you've spent, you'll get it back, basically. They will even reimburse you for the tests that I'm recommending you to go and do. So I said, okay. And I went to the University of East London to get this assessment done. And I think that was the worst day of my life. I just couldn't focus because, that it's like a whole day of testing. And the first hour, my brain was just gone. And I broke down and I said to the man, I can't take this. It's just too much for me. And he was like, that's why you're here. Just don't worry. Just if you don't get it, just say I don't get it. So all these tests, and I was just so drained after about 3 hours of him doing all these different tests. My eyes were even like, I couldn't even see. It got to a point it was affecting my eyesight. And even at that time, I didn't know I had an eye problem as well, you know? So got the test done, and at the end of everything, he said to me, "You definitely got a problem, and it's more than dyslexia. I think you actually are dyslexic as well, because you know, like the way you," he said, "the way you speak, the way you do things, you know, he said, I can see that you're smart, but you can't express yourself very well. You know, you can't express yourself the way you want to, and you know, you're balancing, because literally I was doing all this stuff. You know, it wasn't just like a dyslexia test, it was like a physical test as well. So I had to walk on a straight line, and it was almost like being in the gym as well for the whole day. So he was like, yeah, there's definitely a serious problem here, and he's really surprised that I haven't, like, it wasn't picked up in school or even my parents. And I explained to him that I've been hiding this thing for so many years. Like, I'm 31 and I've been hiding this since I was a child. So he was like, it's understandable. You know, he's met a lot of people like myself that have tried to hide their disability, their learning difficulty. And he, you know, he just encouraged me and said, you know, you're a mother, you're doing an amazing job. Don't put yourself down. It's not something to be ashamed of, you know. And I think when I left that room, that university that day, I just felt like a different person, because it started to make me understand so many things that I had gone through in my childhood, and even like relationships with friends and boyfriends and family members, because I couldn't remember things. I couldn't remember things I'd planned with people. You know, my memory was so poor as well, and people used to think I was doing things like, you know, not calling them back on purpose or not getting back to them on purpose. And, you know, people find that to be rude. So being dyslexic and having dyslexia affected a lot of my relationships growing up in life with everyone around me. So once the results came back from that test, I think I was in my first semester of university, and it was like about 70 pages. You know, I still have it in my email somewhere. It was like 70 pages. And I took my time and I actually read everything. It took me about a day. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I've done this to myself. You know, I can't even believe I've done this to my children. You know, I can't, it's just, but at the same time, I was happy that I had found out what was wrong with me after all these years, so that I could finally understand who I am as a person, and understand why I don't remember things, understand why I can't ride a bike, or understand why I keep bumping into people, or understand why I can't speak well or express myself well. Um, Even pronouncing words, you know, I couldn't pronounce words properly. You know, just it's just so much different things. Even my eyesight as well, had really bad eyesight, and my eyesight was so bad that I would drive and I couldn't even see anything, but I was driving like that. So I was actually being, you know, it's like I was taking so much risks as well. So yes, once I got that diagnosis back, like I said, it was life changing. Um, a lot of aids were put into place. I was given extra time for studying. I was given extra time to do exams. Um, what else? Yeah, like I had different aids on my laptop. I can't even remember what they were, but they all helped me in terms of doing all my research. And I had an assistant. That's it. I was given an assistant that I met every Saturday at my local library. So anytime I got an assignment, she would help me with breaking it down and making me understand. And then I started to let people know that I was dyslexic, and I had dyslexia. So like my family members. So when it came to different modules like accounting, I have a cousin who's an accountant. So he helped me with my accounting module, I just started asking people for help, especially during my 3 years at uni, because I needed the help, and I had to graduate, I had to pass, and set that example to myself and my children that no matter what battles or challenges, hurdles we come across in life, we can overcome them. So I used that 3 years of being in university to just change my perspective about disabilities and myself. And like I said, I'll just ask anybody for help. And I think I can't remember even when I met Tonisha now, if I met her before I started uni or afterwards. But I just didn't understand, because like she's a different type of dyslexic, as you can see. She's quite sharp and vibrant, and I was quite slow and like clumsy and all that kind of. Well, I'm not clumsy, but I'm just using that word. So I it's starting. The whole thing is starting now. I'm getting confused, but yes, that's it. So I found out when I was 31, and then sorry, yes, now I'm starting to remember. So when I finished uni, I got a job as a supported housing officer. And it's quite a big role because I manage different homes for older people. So about a month into that job, one of my colleagues, my managers, actually said to me, have you ever had a test or anything to do with dyslexia or whatever? And I said, yes. I actually declared that I have dyspraxia in my job interview to get this job. And she goes, you declared it? I said, yes, I did. And she goes, okay, because I wanted to speak to you about some things. And she pointed out some errors that I was making in emails, in my reports. It was quite a lot, It was kind of on the verge of getting my first disciplinary, but she was like, I don't want it to get there. I just want to have a conversation to find out if you're aware of all the, like, she wanted to know what's wrong with me. Like, am I having problems at home, or is there something wrong? And I was like, no, I'm fine. And she was like, okay, I've noticed all these things. Are you dyslexic? And I was like, yes, I am. I've declared it. And she was like, okay. She didn't know, because when I got interviewed and got the job, she had come and taken over from that manager. So nothing had been told, like she hadn't been told that there was anything wrong with me. So she said to me, what she wants to do is get me assessed she wants me to get assessed again, because she was like, you were assessed at uni, which was maybe 2 years ago, but so that we can help you at work, I would like to send you off for another assessment. And I said, okay. And I think that time I actually did know Tanisha, and the assessment was near your house, isn't it? Yeah. So she sent me for an assessment. And when I went for that assessment, things were actually worse. Like double, like even worse than the first report I got back. Like things had gotten worse. So with that being done, my workplace were more understanding about the fact that I have this learning difficulty, and they put a lot of things into place for me. And considering that I worked part-time and my colleagues were all on full-time, and they were expecting me to do the work that my colleagues do in 40 hours, in 20 hours, they started to kind of understand, okay, we need to give Eva more time to do things, and stuff like that. So yeah, after that, I just realized, you know what, this thing's not going to go away. It's staying here for life, and I need to really deal with it, and accept it, because I think I was kind of letting it drift away and just hope that, I just didn't like talking about the fact that I'm dyslexic. It's not something that I wanted to always bring up in a conversation with anybody, but I've got to a point in my life where it's very important for me to discuss dyslexia, and I talk about it wherever I go now. I'm not ashamed of it. I just let people know this is what's wrong with me, and so that's my story, really.
Wow.
I think I'm getting confused now, so I need to stop. But yeah, that's my
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and putting your story out here to inspire and to give quite an in-depth overview of dyslexia. And that is why we say you can put 10 dyslexic here and we are not the same. It's uniquely you. And so that is why we will have Tonisha all over, and the way you describe
Sorry,
her.
sorry to interrupt. Can I say something quickly, which I think is very important? That um, my brain gets tired. There's different types of dyslexia. I just want people to know, like those that have younger children. From a young age, I used to get mentally exhausted very quickly. So I just want people to understand that, because I think it's very important, because I mean, even now as an adult, when it's like 12 or 1, I'm mentally exhausted, and I fall asleep a lot, and that's not from anything else. It's actually from the dyspraxia that I have. My brain just like, I have to like sleep a little bit to get some more energy and stuff like that. So if you notice those things in your children as well, those are other signs of having different forms of dyslexia as well. It's really important to let you guys know that as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Queen. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, and she is right. But one thing she said was, it got to a point where everybody thought she's this and that, and so she started becoming promiscuous and all that. And it's true. Like, for those of you who have heard my story before, I told you when I was at the age of 13, turning 14, I ran away from home, and for 2 weeks nobody knew where I was. It's just simply because I got so tired of the school beating me up every day when I go to school, and they have the dictation and mentals. They will be beating you. And then you come home and you open your mouth to talk, and your parents are like, oh, shut up. This is not what we mean. We mean for you to perform academically. So I got so tired, and one day just took money and ran away from home. This is 2 hours away from Accra, boarded a car to Accra, went to a place that my uncle had taken me there once, and I stayed there for 2 weeks. And my parents, they reported to the police and everything. Well, to cut a long story short, I made a phone call to a teacher, and finally they were able to trace where I was and came for me. But just imagine if my parent, I never made that call. Just imagine what could have happened to me. I would have stayed in this location where my family had no idea I was. Anything could have happened. Teenage pregnancy, joining bad gang, smoking, drinking. I would never have continued my education, and you wouldn't have seen Rosalin you are seeing today. And it's same with Eva as well. And I'm so grateful, Eva, you didn't give up, but you push yourself through. And today, it's like when I listen to your story and I also look at the things you're doing, like your business and the community work and development, the things that you are involved in. Like, you can't picture the same person. Like, huh? What is she describing? It's totally, totally different. That means that everybody has so much potential in them. Yes, there are challenges, but we can do it if the support is there. Don't wait for people to go through whatever went through, what I went through, because not every child can make it. Not everybody can make it. So that's what I want to leave us here. We have a couple of questions, really also running to make sure we are mindful of time, but I will go to Amma. Amma, I'd like to find out from you, what has been your greatest or biggest, let me use the biggest challenge as a dyslexic entrepreneur, and how have you overcome it? Your biggest challenge as a dyslexic, or if it's not a challenge, but maybe something that has also made you to be a motivated COO.
Um, okay, I'll start with where I was before entrepreneurship. I believe, I forgot who mentioned it, but hiding has come up. I hid a lot as a kid because I couldn't read or write at the level, but I couldn't also articulate what it was. I would pick up information really, really well, but I couldn't regurgitate it back on paper. So I hid a lot. I didn't tell people I was struggling. And I remember I had a tutor. I had a writing and reading tutor as a kid because they did identify I wasn't reading on the level, but it wasn't identified as dyslexia. And I would hate going to that tutor. And I get to college, I was just very smart in terms of I understood the system of education, so I understood how to navigate the system of education. I would have my friends kind of reread my essays for me. I would help them. They would help me like structure my thoughts, so I would have something to present. Finding out I was dyslexic was actually the thing that unlocked the last piece that I needed in order to stop hiding. And once I no longer needed to hide. I haven't really had many challenges. I'm going to be 100% honest. I started my entrepreneurship journey in 2021. So this is before kind of the AI actual software, but I was exposed because of graduate school to a lot of technology. I think at that time there was like Dragon, which was a reading and writing software. So it helped me get my words down on paper really well. So that's what I used to make my first business plan. And then I hired a copywriter to like, okay, I need you to structure this well, so it is presentable to people. This is everything that I need. And I sat down, I believe it was like a 2.5 week process to sit down and write my business plan with this copywriter from the draft that I created. So entrepreneurship for me, I haven't had that many challenges because I thoroughly understand what I need and where I operate well in. I will say maybe sometimes there's too much on my plate because I'm supposed to be in 3 different places at once. I travel a lot. I have a global business, but I also have a team I mentioned earlier that gets to support me in all the efforts. So I think a lot of that, my shortcomings are just picked up in the roles that have been created in my company. Because things have to keep moving. I'm not the one who's going to be sending out the proposals. I do try to respond to emails myself because I like that personal touch. But if I don't get to it, the email will be responded to. And I've kind of alleviated that burden. So similar to Tonisha, I operate fully in my strengths. And everything that does not align with my strengths, I have a team that supports in that because I am most effective when I'm operating in my strengths. A lot more gets done. And I get to show up in the spaces that I truly desire versus feeling as though I have to work on my weaknesses in order to be better, which I do believe is a failed misconception. What you're good at, double down on that and ask for the help that you need, which has been brought up here, is being able to ask for help and to stop hiding.
Thank you so much, Amma, for sharing that. So asking for help. And listen, there is nothing wrong asking for help. There is nothing, especially like we adults also. Like I know a lot of um people are against, which I'm not really against, but age appropriate when it comes to assistive technology. So you're talking about the text to speech, speech to text, and different grammarly and all that. As long as the age appropriate and the right time it's administered to a child, that is fine. But I don't subscribe to, let's say you go and give a speech to text software for a 5-year-old child. I feel a 5-year-old child needs to be screened and identified, and a multi-sensory instruction put in place for the child to be able to learn, because children can learn. But asking for help, utilizing assistive technology tools as an adult, somebody in the university, it goes a long, long, long way. Now let's come to Tony. Tony, how do you leverage dyslexia as a strength, your dyslexic thinking, when developing business strategies? And this will help, and this will be an insight that will help our young adults with dyslexia.
Okay, that's a good question. So I was actually talking about this to one of my new employees today when I was onboarding her. She was asking me, she was like, Tonisha, why is it that every day we have to fill a clock-in form and we have to submit that has our to-do list? Then we have to also add a video to the form. Then all day long we do work. We have to update what we've done in the form, and then at the end of the day we have to fill a clock out form again and make a video again. She's like, do we have to do all of those? And I said to her, in the last jobs that you've worked in, how easy, when you wanted a promotion, what did your boss say? And she's like, well, you tell them what you've been doing and all the things that you've done to deserve a promotion. And I said, why? Because they don't know what you've been doing, right? And she was like, well, yeah. And I said, so, but in this case, I'm always going to know what you've been doing. I will know it's time for you to be promoted before you will know. I will know you're struggling on a task before you will know. On Fridays, we have an end of week reflection form that comes with the video. I will know everything. In the morning check-in, it's like, how are you feeling on a vote of 1 to 5? I bring that multimodality, that holistic thinking that I require as a dyslexic person. I do require my boss to care about how I am, right? And I do require all these different things. So I bring that into the day-to-day operations of how my staff will work for me. But on a bigger scale, in terms of the strategy for, I guess, even my company, I know that Eva said, I also need to sleep. I have a specific nap time from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. every day. And if you are the thing that has interrupted it, Rosalin, you need to know you are special, but it will not be a daily occurrence. And I will nap after, because my whole head, brain, body is tired from all the thinking that I've been doing. What that means is that in my business strategy, I can't design a company that doesn't work for the way that I think. And so, when I work with clients, the first module that I have is called Defining Your Entrepreneurial Profile. And that whole module is about working with the people to understand who they are, because of course, self-discovery, entrepreneurship is a journey to self-discovery. You can wait for the entrepreneurial journey to drag you into discovering who you are, or you can start to figure out a little bit of self-discovery before you make your way. So when I work with clients on building strategy, building business, I always want to deal with that whole entrepreneurial profile. I want to do their strengths test. I want to do their Belbin assessments. I want to do everything. I want to go through even things like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Where are you there? I want to do a personal pestel analysis. I want to do a SWOT analysis. I want to really figure out from this person. And of course, I want to know if they're neurodiverse, or even if they don't know if they're neurodiverse, but have more like a tendency towards left brain thinking or right brain thinking. So that when we build out strategy, we can build out what I call freedom rituals, right? So that is the kind of things that mean that as an executive, as a leader, you can build freedom into your day-to-day life that does not go the opposite direction to your goals that you have. For me, an element of what we do that gives me freedom in my day is that I get those clock-in forms filled, which means I actually have a lot of chart data. So I know every single task people have done for me since 2019. I know who's been my best performing employee. I know how often people have been feeling low, sad, happy, mad. I know every single thing. And I can track every single task, and I never have to call anyone to stress them out. To me, that's important for my freedom rituals, because I actually don't really want to call you and ask you where your work is. That doesn't make me feel very free, right? So, and that's a part of my nature, where someone else loves a good micromanagement that's in person. So so when I'm working with them, they'll probably want to talk about different ways to have monthly meetings with their staff, monthly reviews, monthly reflections. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to see about it. I only want to know if you tick less than 3 on how you are today on your check-in form. That is when you get a phone call from me, because I don't know what happened. Are you sick? Did someone die? What's wrong? Should you even be working today? And I want to be that incremental on those things, so that on a massive scale, like I said earlier, I can look from a bigger perspective. So that's what I do with my clients. I try to get them to figure out who they are. And our tagline is design a life you'll love. So we can design business models, business plans, and business strategies that is focused around the life that they know that they will love to live, regardless if they love the life they have now. And to me, the most important part of that is you as a person. Do you need to take a nap every day? Do you need to do the school run? Do you really genuinely care to sit and talk to staff every month? Or would you rather have weekly reviews that come with videos, checking and making sure people are telling you properly about how they feel, so you can check in with them straight away? Why should you wait a month? Like, it depends on your nature, right? And build that into the strategy and the strategic plan, so that you can know over the next 24 months that your business will run well and your staff will be well taken care of, and you will have freedom in every day, no matter how hard you work. So yeah, that's the approach I take. And I think that the tools and resources that I use for each client is different, because it depends on what the outcomes are of that whole initial entrepreneurial identity that we kind of define.
Thank you so much, Tonisha. Thank you for the insights you've given. And yes, I'm sure if our employees are here to talk about we dyslexic as leaders, I am sure we will have quite an insight. Yeah. Sometimes it tends to be difficult. I have to say, even you, I'm always fighting you. But it's all for the goodness. It feels like, our level or our standard as dyslexic, I have observed, including myself, is quite this, you know? And so we are always like this. And then maybe our employees are here. So they kind of like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing all the time? But you find out that with time, when they get to learn and they go out as the better people because we have been able to impact them so well. And they are going very, very confident. Now, let's move the conversation around a little bit to go into parent support. And I want us to quickly give submissions on these questions that I'm bringing out so that we can take one or two comments or questions also from our audience here before we wrap up. And so, Aaron, this is for you. What would you say to parents who may worry about their child's future due to dyslexia? How can they help? How can they help build their child's confidence?
Well, it's it's easy. Just always have confidence in them, always reassure them, always, it's easy for parents to label children a certain, they're lazy or whatever. Unfortunately, or fortunately, my father wasn't really around when I was, going to school and whatnot. He was working all the time. So a lot of my my confidence came with either the people that were around me that liked me, made me feel really good about myself. Or it might have been my grandmother who I didn't see very much, but she did, reinforce like great positive messages, in my head on who I'm going to be. Give your children the vision that they can do anything. That's to me, I mean, my children have all the confidence in the world because growing up, they kind of knew my story. Again, I didn't explain I was dyslexic, but they knew the story, the struggles that I went through, and the challenge that I had, and the confidence I had in myself. So if I had had a supportive parent, it would have been a cakewalk childhood, and that's the advice I like to give to the parents dealing with children that are struggling in general, not even just this having dyslexia, but just other learning disabilities. It just keep the positiveness. Don't blame the child. Don't ever call the child out of their name because you're frustrated. They're not getting an assignment or whatever. It's very difficult. I know that homework for me was a nightmare. I knew that I would probably not turn it in on time. And then I would see the disappointment in the teachers and whatnot. Again, they didn't know I was dyslexic, but they did know I was a good kid. They did know that deep down I was a good kid. I was worth taking a chance on, maybe passing them or putting them in a special class for whatever reason. And I was in special ed. Here in the United States, they make fun of the kids on the short bus. I was one of those short bus kids, and proudly so. I have no issues whatsoever saying that now. But that's the advice. I mean, just again, until you figure out, or even the teachers that are out there, that suspect the children they're teaching, just be positive. The teachers, for me, were like mothers and fathers. They were teachers. The teachers for as me growing up, I looked up to my teachers more probably than I did my father because he just wasn't there. So you guys are role models. You guys are the missing link in some of these dyslexic children's lives. So just keep it positive and just show them you care. That's the whole thing. Kids will figure it out when you get older, and they will remember the ones that showed them that they cared. I know I did.
Absolutely, Aaron. We remember. I remember the educator who said to my parents, "Your daughter is good." I mention her name on almost every stage I am on. I'm always checking up on her and how nice it is, like almost like 20 years, and I'm still following up with the same person.
Can I say one more thing real quick? I remember when I was in 10th grade, there was a teacher who she was a drama teacher, and she told me that I couldn't be an actor, and I believed her. And that to me, I think about that all the time. I think about how if she had maybe I wanted to act, but had she given me the positive feedback that she could do anything at practice or whatever, who knows, maybe I could have been an actor. And that's the one thing I always point out again to my children is do not ever let anybody tell you can't do something, or if you want to do it, you do it. It doesn't matter what anybody says to you. You just do it. That's always been a motivating factor in my life. Thinking back to 10th grade, that teacher, for whatever reason, giving me that negative advice. So again, that's another one. I'm done now.
Rosalin, you're muted.
Thank you. I am so I'm so glad you brought that in, because I think there are a lot of educators who kind of just conclude a child's future just because of the marks they are scoring on the paper. And today, like Richard Branson of Virgin Atlantic, for example, the same thing. A teacher told him, "You will never amount to anything." Now look at him. Hmm, virgin. And so I can imagine how the person, if he or she is alive, will be knocking himself up. And same as you, Aaron, imagine the person had encouraged you and be like, okay, why do you like the kids? Let me hear your story, and encourage you. Maybe if today you were in Hollywood, I wouldn't also have found you. Yeah, but that is not to change the fact that a teacher, you make dreams come true. You are like parents as well. These kids are in your hands like 8 to 10 hours a day, like 5 days a week, and you can make or unmake a child's dream. So you choose your path, but we hope that the path you choose will be the one that will contribute to a child's future. Now let's go to our I will ask your position as a queen mother in society. What cultural challenges do parents face in advocating for their child with dyslexia or any form of challenges, knowing where you come from in Ghana? Because in our work, there has been time where parents says, "Oh, I believe it's a spiritual thing." So, what other challenge do you foresee, and how can parents overlook that and really be confident that things are going to get better?
Not difficult, but I'm just trying to think of how I can explain. I just think we live in a time now where people just have to be real about um, you know, what their child is going through and put. Well, it's hard actually because I grew up here. I didn't grow up in Ghana, so but still the cultural. I'm trying to. Can you say the question again, please? Because it's a bit. Can you break it down, maybe?
Absolutely. So I asked a question regarding cultural perception
Okay.
on dyslexia. Yeah.
Mm. Well, I think we just have to continue doing the work like we're doing and creating the awareness. If we keep doing that, then I think um, it will break these cultural perceptions as you're talking about, because I don't think they're not really gonna go away unless we create the awareness, isn't it? Like any other thing, or like I don't know, Galamsey or whatever's going on, politics or whatever. People are just going on about it, talking about it, creating the awareness more. So I think if people like ourselves come out and tell our stories, especially people of, not even black Indians, whatever, anybody of ethnic minority where they face these cultural challenges. Because when I was young, my mum used to take me to church a lot, and she always used to think something was wrong with me. Oh, I'm slow, maybe it's a spiritual thing, or I don't have confidence, maybe it's a spiritual thing, or relationship breakdown is a spiritual thing, or me not doing well in school, it's a spiritual thing. But the truth is that my mum actually is a dyslexic herself. My mum actually cannot read or write, and she always refers to herself as an illiterate. And I keep saying to her, "You're not an illiterate, mum. You actually have dyslexia. Don't stop calling it," because back in the day they used to call people illiterates that couldn't read or write, isn't it? So I think it's just, yeah, I think we're on track. I think as life is going on and we're passing on to our generations, and like this young girl, what's her name's daughter, we have diagnosis from young ages, and just keep promoting the awareness of dyslexia awareness like we're doing now. I think that will contribute to breaking these cultural issues that we have. But I mean, you can't really stop people thinking the way they're thinking if they're brought up a certain way. So all we can do is continue to do what we do. And I think that's it, really. I don't know any other way to explain. If anyone wants to help or intervene, answer the question. But yeah.
Well, I do think that you answered the question, and any of our other speakers can take it on once it's their turn to also kind of address an issue. But I like the example you brought in, that when you were young, your mom used to take you to prayer camp thinking something was wrong with you or something. And I tell you, it today is still happening. Where I've met parents who go and spend hours and hours at church praying that their child will magically start learning or something, think, and not really going to the bottom to address the issue where we have assessed the child. Let's really get a teacher who can support them. Let's get somebody who can build their confidence. And so that still persists. And I'm sure beyond Ghana, in other African countries, it's the same. And it's something we need to change by one, doing a lot of awareness, advocating for policy and system change so that it can favor learners with learning difficulty. I think these are one of the ways that we can address these things. So you perfectly answered the question. Now let's go to Amma. Amma, I'd like you to kind of touch on advice or how parents can encourage their dyslexic children to explore technology and innovation as a tool for learning and self-expression.
Oh, thank you for that. Okay, I do work in IT. So, a the first important thing is when we think of tech or technology, expensive is a word that is associated with it. And I just want to debunk that myth. There is so much free assistance that is out there that you don't need a membership for, that you don't need a subscription or a software and license. You just have to do your research. And as a parent, that's why ADO exists in terms of the awareness and understanding what to look for, how to even just Google simple tools. And there are tools that I use, but I know ADO as a collective, we don't promote any specific tools, but there's so many out there. If you literally just Google, there are softwares that help your children write. So they can just say what they want to say, and the technology will help write it out for them. There are technologies that will help correct your children's grammar. There are sometimes we're really big thinkers. So sometimes we just need to get something down, and grammar is not our best friend. There is software for that. Any modality in terms of what needs to be supported for dyslexia, there is a free version of this assisted technology that you just need to go find. So it's not expensive. When we talk about the assessment is something that can be costly, can be pricey, but once you distill what you're actually assessing, Tanisha and I got assessments through our university because we were just part of that program. Not every university is going to have that kind of support for you. But as a parent, and I think, well, her assessment was more so holistic. So she got tested for a lot of things. But if a parent can advocate for their child and say, hey, I am noticing X, Y, and Z in my child, you can almost distill the cause down. So the assessment can be very hyper focused on what you're noticing. These are some ways that you can cut costs. So I don't want expense to be kind of like the first line of what parents think of, because there's so many tools and technologies that are out there that I want to encourage parents, and I also want to encourage educators to utilize for themselves. Don't let cost stop you from advocating for your students. Don't let cost stop you from advocating for your child.
Thank you so much for sharing that. The question that came into my mind when you were answering this was, we live in this part of the continent or this part of the world where access is there's a huge gap in access. It is only few people who get access to technology, even data to get onto there. And I saw Miss Tonisha writing so much different apps and stuff you could utilize. But what happened when somebody cannot get access to these tools, but their child is struggling? What should they do? Any of you can take that question. It can be Amma, it can be Tonisha, it can be Aaron, it can be Awaya. Any of you can take this question. What can
I
be
mean,
done?
I'll take it. I'll take it because I guess I'm dropping technology. But technology is really about, and I think Erin, you might know the same better than me, but there's some connection between technology and magic. There's like a saying about, like, I can't remember what it is. I'm going to Google it. But technology, like magic is all about when you can't see the machinery behind, right? The process. So technology is not always about. There you go. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? And that saying I heard it years ago from this tutor I had, and he was blind, and he was teaching me Of Mice and Men and another book I can't remember, for my English literature for my GCSE exam. And the man couldn't see. He could not see. But then he's telling me it doesn't say that. And I used to say to him, how do you know? And he'd always say this saying about technology, like, let me read it again. Yeah, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So he'd be like, he has advanced technology and it's like magic, right? But he had Braille. All he had was Braille. He was reading the thing in Braille. I was too young and too stupid to realize that he obviously can read the thing another way. He knows I'm reading it wrong. He's feeling his Braille. There was a lot of things I couldn't connect because he had this machine, and it was like, basically, if you imagine feeding him sentences, and I'm just thinking he's feeding away anyway. But I say that to say, as long as you come up with a method and approach to create a multimodal, multi-sensory, multiple opportunities for a child to understand something, that is the same as technology. And when you do it very well, and then suddenly the child's like, wow, you did magic. It's not always about the internet. And like my grandma used to do, so, if my grandma wanted to teach me or confirm to me or make sure I know how to count to 5, she would offer me £5 to clean my room. I'm going to get to know what 5 is because I want that money. I want that money, right? So if she tried to count with me, tried to do this, no, it would be 5. And in fact, one major thing my grandma used to do with me with counting is that she decided just not to teach me maths the normal way. She decided to teach me Vedic mathematics, VEDIC mathematics, because I just could not learn maths properly. But once she put me on the Vedic maths route, I was a genius. I was a whole genius till my teacher thought I was cheating. I'll sit in the class and he'd teach something and I use a different approach, and he thought I was cheating right there. So not everything is about actual digital technology. Technology can be, it's just about, look, how are you innovating on a particular thing, right? Your hardware doesn't have to have wiring. It doesn't have to be connected to any sort of like electricity. Your hardware can be, as like I said, 5 single nairas that the child wants one. And if they do this particular chore, they get 5. And you associate that 5, that 10, that 20. Maybe it's not always nairas. Maybe it's like ground nuts or plantain chips. Or you associate those different things that you know the child cares about. Like if we're doing maths and those quantities, you associate them in the person outside of or different to the mode that you're trying to use that doesn't resonate with them, right? And I think this is similar in many ways. So, I mean, I'll try and give one more example to do with reading, right? Because someone asked the question, does reading get better for people with dyslexia? Get less difficult as you grow? And I was just writing, no, not necessarily, but you get better at understanding why you're not understanding certain things. So for me with reading, what I will do is there is a great app called Speechify. I was just going to write it, but you get better at understanding yourself. Let me write this because I will forget it. Try Speechify. What Speechify does, which is an app, but we're on YouTube, so I'm assuming these people are apps, right? Which is an app, is you can take Speechify, you can take a picture of a newspaper page, and Speechify will read it to you because it can see the words on the picture. You can take Speechify, you can connect it to your Google Drive, and it will read anything you want for you in your Google Drive that you, of course, send to it, right? So you connect to your Google Drive, you do that. You could connect it to all these different things, and suddenly anything, whether it's written on paper or typed in a document, is open to you, right? So once you actually just get very used to, yes, very structured roots in India. Sorry, I'm just looking at someone talking about Vedic mathematics and its roots in India. Exactly. And my grandma was Ghanaian, but she was not going to give up on which way will I get this into this girl's head. And I'm sure she even had that, like Ghanaian grandma hand shaking by the ear. So technology is not always about hardware, the way that we understand technology. Sometimes it's just about finding a way to do something that makes it feel magical and makes it so that the other person just feels like they've had an extremely magical experience. And in this case, in learning.
Thank you so much. And that is right. Like, I remember when my mind started opening up, I was in the vocational school and there wasn't really an access to internet or any form of technology. It was just the cooking books and the ingredients we are cooking with and being in the kitchen. But some way, somehow, because I was playing with these ingredients, so now rice, orange, chicken, whatever, then my mind it started making meaning to me, and I started becoming the smart student, and I was known as smart student. They didn't know I was struggling so much, but then it helps a lot. So the local things that we have around ourselves, so that's why some of these multi-sensory methods will say technology, but then when we look into our local context or African context, there are so many things that we need to start developing for our own use. That even if you don't have access to internet and stuff, you could still leverage it and support kids. Amma, did you wanted to add something?
I did want to add one last thing. We touched on kind of the technology, if you don't have access to technology, just the creative ways of learning. But I think if none of this is accessible, one of the first places to start is just spending time with your child. And that is the most invaluable, tangible thing that doesn't cost anything. As a parent, once you start spending time with your child with an open mind, you start to see firsthand kind of what their struggles are, and you might not be able to put a label on it. But the more time that you spent with your child, the more that you're going to gain an understanding of, hey, he likes to do this in this way, or when I ask them to do this, they kind of get distracted or they run off, and you begin to build a profile of your child. And I think that is the most useful information that any parent can have. It does not cost money. I know time is money, but if you can just start building a profile with your child, just spending time with your child open-mindedly, it will set you on your journey to help them have a successful educational future wherever they are.
I love it. Thank you so much for adding that. Yeah, thumbs up. Thank you so much. So we are wrapping up, and I see Tony has taken her time to answer most of the questions that came our way. If you're on here and you have a question that has not been answered in the chat already, please send them our way because we are wrapping up in the next few minutes here, and I'll be able to ask our speakers here.
Sorry, that was my ADHD. I was trying to like figure out how to entertain myself. I was like, I don't want to go and use my phone. So I just thought I'll talk to the audience. Forgive me.
Yes, she went ahead of us. Definitely ADHD, but it's a cool ADHD, and you've helped us a lot. But if you do have a question, please always send it our way, even beyond this conversation, and we'll be able to address it in our next session. Now let's come home. We are about wrapping up. My dyslexic fellows, this phase is without any question. You are going to go in a free flow and talk within 2 minutes. Please be within 2 minutes and share. Maybe there is something you really wanted to share, but I haven't asked, but you want to put it out there, whether it is to benefit teachers or educators in general, parents, dyslexic kids, dyslexic adults, our governments in Africa, whichever way you want to take it from, you can take it. And so, Awoya, will come to you first, and then we will proceed with Aaron and go to Amma and come back to Tonisha. You can take the floor.
I think everyone's journey here is quite different. With mine, I think my advice to anyone that has dyslexia is you need to learn how to come to acceptance with yourself, and love yourself as well, and just know that you're different, and nothing's going to change that. Nothing's going to take that away from you. So you just need to work with the person that you are. And just, I mean, what I can say is that if I can make it, anybody can make it, because I've had so much challenges in life, from childhood to teenagehood to my 20s, 30s, now being in my 40s, and my life has really just begun. I'm now really in my element, and that's because I came to a place where I just learned to accept myself for who I am. And I started to use all these aids that are now in place. I was really scared of technology because I was in that era where we didn't learn IT in school. I think when I left secondary school, then IT had just come in as a GCSE. So I was always running away from technology up until probably the last 2 years. And when I started, using all these apps to help me in life, I started to excel. I'm a business owner. I own 2 businesses. I have 15 members of staff. I have 5 people in my management team. And I ask people for help where I can't do things. I get the help from my colleagues and people around me, and these aids, especially like chat, is it chat AG or whatever Tonisha said? I found out about it last year, and because of that, my life has changed. I've been able to start writing my book called It Starts With Self-Love, and I'm coming from a different angle. But like I said in the beginning, as I was growing up, I had really bad belief systems about myself that have taken so much years to strip away. So, my thing is about building your confidence and learning to love who you are, and, understand yourself as a person, because all these things do happen when you're dyslexic. You get confused about yourself. You question yourself. So for me, that's very important, just to accept who you are and, get help. If you feel like if you feel like if you feel like you're struggling, ask for help. That's it. That's what I would like to tell everyone today. Just don't be scared to ask for help, and just learn to accept who you are for who you are, because it's not, the situation is not going to change. You cannot change yourself, so but you can make yourself better. if you just love yourself more and, use everything that's available around you. Because here I am today, like I said, business owner, a queen. I didn't even, there was a point where I didn't even love myself, to the point to even accept such a thing, and I've achieved so much. There's so much, I can't keep going on and talk about it, but there's a lot that I've done. And yeah, so just use everything and the people around you to your advantage. And that's what I'd like to say to everyone that's listening. Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. As you heard, she has achieved in all these challenges and the ups and downs, like you swimming, you go down, you come up. She has achieved so much. And so she said something, if I could achieve or get to where I am, that means everybody else can do. And I would say the same. If I am sitting here today connected to all these lovely people, oh my goodness, can you imagine if I had lost all this and maybe somewhere in a village with some 8 children behind me, hungry, and all of them at my back? And where would I have found you, all of you? And how would we have supported our community? And so it tells you that don't give up. If you're a parent, don't give up on your child. If you're an educator, don't give up on that child as well. And we need our governments to formulate policies that will really address the needs of dyslexics and those with related learning difficulty, same as the workplace as well. There are people who are dyslexic, I am sure, in all these organizations that are hiding, masking it up because they're afraid to even say anything. Please, let's make our environment inclusive to embrace everybody. So let's go to Amma for Amma to give us her last submission.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. I'm going to hit all three of our stakeholders. The first one is to our dyslexic community. Whether you've been diagnosed formally, whether you understand your full spectrum of dyslexia, whether you've been diagnosed as a child, whether you've been diagnosed as an adult, we can do things beyond our own limitations. We just need to understand what our superpower is. And I encourage everyone that is struggling to stop hiding and find your community. When I started finding dyslexic people, I sought out Rosalin. Rosalin didn't find me, I found her. But once I got in the space of other dyslexic people, I felt so much more understood. I felt so much more seen, and I felt so much more free because I had people that thoroughly understood how I operated. They knew how I thought. They knew what I needed in order to fully show up. And it was just such a loving hug. Find a community. Stop hiding. There are people that on all spectrums where we are here to support one another in the dyslexic community. That is why ADO exists. And ask for help for my fellow dyslexic. Please ask for help. If you don't know where to start from, just start by saying, hey, I think I need help. ADO is a great resource for that. The second stakeholder I want to address are parents. As I stated earlier, the biggest thing you can do is just spend time with your children. Whether you're a parent that has the resources to kind of champion and build out the profile for what your child needs for equitable education, or whether you're a parent that you know there's something wrong with your child and they're struggling, spend time with your child. Continue to encourage them. Continue to tell them every day that they can do and be anything that they want to be, because words mean so much, right? We remember the words of the parents or the family member that have put us down as children and told us, oh, we can't, or you're disobedient, or you're hard-headed. But we also remember the words of the family member and the parents that also encouraged us, that told us that we can do and be anything that we wanted to be, even to a delusional state, right? When parents can convince their kids that they can do anything, that's when children can soar and run. And also for parents, specifically for my parents in the African community, which I grew up in, is understanding that dyslexia is not going anywhere. It's not something that you pray away. It is not a spiritual demon. It is not a curse. It is it's a neurodiverse, it's just neurodiverse learning, right? So I want parents to understand that dyslexia does not go anywhere. So if it's not addressed in a proper manner, we cannot help our children to succeed. So please utilize the resources. Once again, ADO is a great starting point. ADO exists to support Africa as a continent and all the different communities and all the different types of cultures we are in. And Rosalin can correct me, I believe 32 countries. ADO is a resource there. And lastly is our teachers. Teachers are the first front line of defenses. It is an educator that changed my life. It is an educator that saw my potential, as an educator that saw my brilliance and sat me down and said, hey, I think we need to get this looked at. Educators, still to this day, we can all remember our favorite teacher. We can remember the teacher that we love to spend time with. We can also remember the teachers that we did not like going to. But I'll say the teachers that had a lasting impact, those are the ones still to this day that we remember their name. I remember Miss Joanna. She was my reading teacher. She would sit with me. She would sound things out with me. These are the people that have the longest blueprint for children's lives, and you guys are the first line defense. If your school doesn't offer the resources, if you just don't have the access to these tools and technologies, just even being aware and sitting down with a child and say, hey, I know you're struggling, but you can, and we're going to figure out a way to make sure that you're successful. So all three stakeholders have a place in the dyslexic conversation, and how to make sure that education is equitable on all fronts. And together, between the dyslexic, between the parent, and between the teacher, we can create an environment to foster further education and learning, and create a world where dyslexics sit on top. I believe every corporation or organization needs a dyslexic person in their C-suite. Otherwise, they're not tapping into their full potential. So there's so much room and opportunity to grow, and I encourage everyone to seek out the tools that you need.
I love that. Yes, I love that your last, and every organization needs us over there. We bring all the solutions together. So you need us there definitely, and parents. Amma said it all. I don't even want to add anything to it. Let's go. I was thinking Aaron will go and then Tonisha, but I want to have a male end. So Tonisha go, and then Aaron will take. Yes.
Already flexing your muscles, yeah. I mean, I think because I do have a slightly different, or I have had a slightly different, really confident dyslexic journey, I want to kind of stick to that, because I think it's very often in life, like, even Eva, you said it a few times, and I was like, I'm going to phone Eva and make sure she never says that again, because there's nothing wrong with you. And I think that if you think, you're like, oh, I wanted to make sure they knew what was wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. It's what's different about me, what's different about how I think, what's different about how I see the world. And I think that that's what I want to really position it as, because that's what I always see, is that when I'm working with neurodiverse people, they always think something's wrong, right? And there's nothing wrong, because in that difference is so much strength, sometimes that even I don't have. Like, I find myself quite often jealous of people because the strength that their neurodiversity gives them that I don't have, right? We don't all have the same. It might be called dyslexia, but Rosalin, were we not somewhere where the person from the Ministry of Education was talking about how there's 15 different types of dyslexia alone? Then you get into dyspraxia, or the dyscalculia, and then, like, forget the dys's, all the other types of neurodiversity. So I guess for me, what I really want to kind of just say is that it's a reminder to everyone that we are actually totally different people. We're actually made genetically very different. 4,000, a lady called Bozoma, which Emma loves her, but I was watching a video and she was saying something like 4,000 people had to live genetically, right? Those pieces had to fall, people had to die, people had to survive, people had to thrive for genetically her to be made, for genetically you to be made. So when you walk into a room, dyslexic or not dyslexic, you walk into the room with those 4,000 people. When you come up to a problem and you're trying to resolve it, you're trying to resolve it with those 4,000 people, because if you are lucky, you're going to be the reason another 4,000 get to survive, get to live in the future, or another person based on the 4,000 you're in. The point I'm trying to make is that too often we see the world at the base of our own feet. We can't see past our nose, can't see past our feet. So we can't see the true strength and value and power that comes from our mere existence, right? Before you open your mouth, before you learn to read in English, calculate maths, those things are not actually important. What's actually important is that you're able to thrive, survive. You're able to cover what we refer to as your Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do you have shelter? Do you have food? Do you have security? That's what you need to be working towards. And yes, society says, oh, the more words you can read, the more degrees you can have, the more degrees that you have, the more money that you make. It's not true. The more soft skills you have, the more likely you are to make money. The more positive relationships you build, the more likely you are to make money. The more sustainable practices you have, the more likely you are to have a sustainable lifestyle. The more money you save, the more money you're likely to keep. So really, fundamentally, most people, just from observing their day-to-day lives, observing people around them, choosing mentors, choosing guidance, speaking and listening, will thrive, right? You don't actually have to do a degree. And I say this as an associate dean. Like, I banned my son from going to uni. I told him, don't go to uni. That boy went to uni against my will, because too often I see people struggling to go to university and take a degree. For what? For what? How many people do you know that do the job of their degree? The point of the degree process is to prove to an employer you are able to concentrate and focus on something for a period of time. You can focus on anything you want for a long period of time. So don't force your child into, your niece, your nephew, your partner, into a university program, because it's not the university or the program. It's force them into consistency and sustainability and focus and value of actually putting bricks together and building something. Let them have a finished portfolio of something. Maybe it's a portfolio of plants in their garden. I interviewed an entrepreneur the other day who runs a floristry company in Ghana, because her father farms flowers and her mother likes to decorate the house. And she's an accountant, but what did she grow up to be? A florist. Because it's the things around her that shaped who she became, right? So, I say this because I'm just like, yes, we're talking about it. We're talking about academia. We're talking about all these things, but please don't take the session to be an advert for academic expenses. It's not what we're pushing at. What we're trying to really explain to you is that everybody is capable of understanding everything, but everybody doesn't understand and digest everything in the same way. And we're trying to share to you the issues that we have had in those experiences, and the fact that every day we learn more about ourselves, what we do and don't understand, and how we do and don't understand, and how we process, how we store memory, how we recall, how we have to rest the mind. That is really what I think that I want you guys to take away. Just remember that it's actually always about the human being, and stick to that. I think Amma made a good point about spend time with your kids. Eva made a good point about the value her kids brought into her life, for her to actually think she can escape this judgment. Create a judgment-free environment for the people that you care about, and then they will be able to thrive, right? And yes, if education is something that they care about and you care about and everyone can actually get towards, fine. And I mean that traditionally. But if not, the world is an education pool. So let's not forget that. So that's kind of like all I wanted to say.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tony. We will go to Aaron to take his final words, and we will be out of here. Dyslexics, if you leave us, we will stay here for 5 hours. Aaron, take over.
Yeah, and I could talk for 5 hours. You give me 5 hours to talk about dyslexia. So, guys, listen, if you're watching me, I'm the byproduct of a single family, a single parent, upbringing. Father was never there. I have been a hustler since I was probably 8 years old, and I was out there doing it. I had a lot of confidence, even though I knew that I was not I did not learn the same way. I never thought I was stupid, but I just knew that there was something different about me. Having dyslexia is, we come in different shapes and sizes. It doesn't matter what race you are, doesn't matter if you're male, female, does not matter. The one thing that I think that I had to shake was the fact that being dyslexic, I thought you were mentally ill. I thought it was mentally an illness, which is not. Again, we just learn differently. This is the way we're wired. That's all. That's all it is. Um, it's funny, we're talking about the degrees and whatnot. All my children have degrees. I didn't, but I made sure that they did. And I always tell people, if I could have went to college and got my degree, at that period of time when I was young, not out there doing the things I was doing, I would trade in a second. But it didn't stop me from being successful. It didn't stop me from working for large corporations, being one of the youngest, most energetic, most positive people that you could imagine working for, working with. People want to be around people that are positive, and that's the thing. You got to grow up in your mind knowing that you're going to be successful, and what's going to help you get there is the parent, is the teacher, is that positive role model, is that one person that believes in you. As a kid, forget being dyslexic. It's just being a kid, being an adult, even when you really think about it. And this, find your purpose. Teach your children to find their purpose early in life. We know we change every 10 years or whatever it is, but if you find your purpose, your children, even as an adult, I really did not find my purpose until I was 47 years old. Okay. So, all this time I was going through life trying to figure out what I'm really good at and everything else. Again, not knowing that I was dyslexic. That's the thing. It would have been a lot easier trying to figure certain things out if I had known that. So the fact that you're watching me, watching this amazing group, tells me that you care. There's someone maybe that you're a teacher, children out there, maybe it's your children, whoever it is. Just remember everything that we're saying. You're looking at 5 individuals that are completely different. We learn different ways. We have different backgrounds, but we all have one thing in common. Well, actually 2 things in common. We're dyslexic and we're successful. And I'm not talking about just the money. Okay. I'm talking about rich and all that stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. We know who we are. We know what our value is. We know what our purpose is in life. And our purpose is to share that with you, with anybody that doesn't understand what being dyslexic is. And if you're learning, for the first time and you're learning from us, it's a blessing, because I'm going to tell you, every time I'm with these ladies, and we have this discussion, it seems like I pick up something new, in the conversation, learn a little bit about, myself. I put myself in those particular situations. And, I always, like I say, usually I end it with, be positive, have confidence, and never give up, all that. But just think about this, okay? Put yourself in the individuals who you're thinking about life, and figure out and think about what they're going through. If it's a child struggling, he's probably struggling at school. He's probably getting picked on. He's probably been told that he's stupid and everything else. Understand that I'm not for the old school way that I grew up, where my father, toughen up, son. You know what I mean? Don't cry. Don't be a crybaby. I'm not for that life. Okay. It's too hard nowadays. We have too much. We know too much about children growing up. We know a lot about, psyche and everything else that our parents didn't know, or my parent didn't know. But don't be that parent. Be really, truly, I would say be considerate. It's hard to be considerate as a parent to your child, but, be understanding and love your kids, and know that, if they're struggling, it's for a reason, not because they're lazy, not at all. But adults, dream big. It's not too old. You're not too old to dream. I'm, like I said, almost 60 years old. I have so many dreams that I'm trying to achieve them right now. You guys don't know, man. I just can't, as soon as I get off this call, I got 500 things I got to do. Being dyslexic, I can handle all 500 of them. But dream big, and make it happen, And, can I have 5 hours to talk? Because I still got some other stuff to say. Can you give me, can I get another 45 minutes? If I want my number, we can talk, because I got some more stuff to say, but dear.
We will definitely bring you back, Ambassador. We will bring you back. Like, guys, if you leave us here, we could go on for like 10 hours and we are not tired.
Yeah, I know.
Because we believe in what we're saying. We know
Yeah.
it is important. We don't want anybody to grow up losing their potential because they had challenges with learning. If you don't know, research out there says 40% of the world millionaires are all dyslexics. And so, how can that be? And so, Africans, can we wake up? The talent is within Africa. How can we develop ourselves? How can we develop our talent to solve our problems that we have in Africa? They are on the street. A lot of people drop out. They are on the street. We don't want anybody dropping out again. And you can help us do that by sharing this link to a lot of educators. Definitely, whoever you are and you're watching, whether you're a parent, whoever you are, you know somebody who is in education, you know a parent, you know a community group. Please share this link with them, share this link over with them, and spread our awareness. This is Dyslexia Global Conversations with Dyslexic session for Dyslexia Awareness Month. We have Dyslexia Global Conversation once every month. If you're watching, you want to support us or sponsor us, you could always reach out to us at info@africadyslexia.org. If you go on our website, you'll find a way to support the work that we're doing. On 29th, we are gathering here 10 founders of dyslexia organizations in Africa, spread across Africa. We will be gathering here, hosted by our inclusive lead, Justina, who is going to host us to hear our stories about why we are all on this journey. And I tell you, all these people coming on have different career, but then something compelled them. You don't want to miss that discussion. If you are here, we couldn't address your question. We apologize in advance, but we will make sure to address it one time if we come back. I am so grateful, my dyslexic fellows, my dyslexic thinkers, my dyslexic creative. So grateful for always availing yourself when we call you. Our here has been 4 years with us since we started, and so you have my ambassadors and my board members here. I am just so grateful that you believe in the work we are doing. You come here not taking 1 cent from me. I actually come to you all for money, and you still open your doors to me. I am just grateful for every child's life that is going to be touched by the message you have shared today and always as their life is being touched. May those impact multiply in folds for you. That will be the form of payment that I have for you. I wish you long life, prosperity, more money, because ADO needs money. More, more money. And this brings to us the end of our conversation today. If you don't have anything to share, then we will be saying goodbye to our audience. Thank you for joining us. Remember to share the link with everyone. Bye bye.